Making Big Shifts, presented by Marketing Reboot, with your host, Josh Anderson.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Making Big Shifts by Marketing Reboot. I'm your host, Josh Anderson, where we talk to real entrepreneurs making really big shifts and the real decisions and real results to follow. Today, I'm joined by my friend, Gary Wilbers. He is a best-selling author, business coach, speaker, you name it, he's done it. So, Gary, thanks for coming to the podcast.
Oh, it's great to be here, Josh. I'm excited to share some information.
I appreciate that. So the whole premise of the podcast is really about making these big shifts in your career, of course, right? So I know you've had a storied career in wireless and cellular. So do you want to kind of go through one of those big changes you had to make or those big shifts that you made back previously?
Yeah, I would say it probably when I finally decided, okay, I got into the wireless business in 1990. In Missouri, in our area, that's when it first started here. And I was in that through 2012. But I will tell you, around that 2008, 2009, I started kind of telling my wife, I think I need to, I think we need to look at about what's our exit in this wireless business. And I'll be honest, it scared the living daylights out of her, but I could see the consolidation happen in our industry. The carriers were no longer wanting the smaller dealers. I had 15 stores at the time, considered small compared to the ones that had 400 and 500 and 1,000 stores. And you could start to see that change. What happened is really that 2009, 2010, I started really getting serious about it, but I never made any changes until 2011 when I went to a conference and I wrote down as a goal that I wanted to sell my business by 12/31/2012. And that became the shift because when I came back, I started working my plan. I had these small little actions that I had to take to be able to start working that plan. And in the wireless industry, we couldn't just sell to anybody. We had to sell to another dealer that was in our industry because they wouldn't allow somebody from the outside to come in because they didn't think they knew the industry. And it couldn't be another carrier, so it had to be somebody within your carrier. The good thing is we met each other around at conferences and all the time, so you knew who the different players were around the country and stuff. So I went to my buddy out of St. Louis and offered to sell to him, and we worked out a deal and did a real scientific method to come up with our price range. We had a recurring revenue stream, so a residual monthly stream. And I told him what that amount was. So there was always a multiples of that. So we did a real scientific method. We both wrote our numbers down on a piece of paper, and we agreed that if one of us put down a real low number, or if I put a real high number on, whichever number is the most realistic, that's the number we take. Well, we was about 100,000 apart, but we came to an agreement of what those numbers were. And he was going to buy me out. Well, in July of that year, I go to a conference. This is probably 30 days before that conference with AT, and they tell us their new plan. Well, their new plan normally is not good for dealers. Like I was a debt-free company at that time, 15 stores, and they wanted us to remodel every store that was going to run $100,000 to $150,000 per store. So $1 million to $1.5 million in debt from no debt. And I really didn't want to do that. Well, I get back from that conference and he gets a little cold feet. And I call him probably 15 to 30 days afterwards, say, hey, when are we going to get moving? Because I want to close this by the end of the year. I'm not sure I want to follow up. I don't know if I want to continue myself in the industry. So then I had to go to the next dealer. Ended up, we worked out a deal for the same price. He named the same numbers that we had agreed on. So I moved forward with him. And we were fortunate, 12/31/2012, we sold the business and was the last day that money ACH'd into my account. Never felt so good. And there was a few things I had to wrap up the next year, but the thing is, I didn't have that business anymore to worry about. And it was a good feeling.
That's really cool. And that just kind of dives into the importance of setting goals, right? And actually putting hard dates on those goals. I know just from working with you in the past, how you're a firm believer in whether it's quarterly, 5-year goals, 3 goals, whatever. Yeah. Why are you I know that's like everybody understands the importance of goals, but for you personally, why is it such a big deal?
Well, it kind of follows up on one of my quotes that I coined a few years back. It's goals. It's like having your headlights on because you know where you're going. And I'm a firm believer in goals really sets you on the target. It makes it visible to you. And I'm a firm believer is when we do that and we set goals, then we're more likely to take it. Now, there's more than just setting a goal. It's great to say, oh, okay, set a goal. Of course, we've all heard the X to Y by when, putting a date to it. But then it's also breaking it down into smaller chunks, and when you break it down in those smaller steps, that's when you make progress. Because I think the challenge people have is they'll set a 3-year or 5-year or 10-year. I always say back it to a 1 year. and what do you want to accomplish in 1 year, but then take it to 90 days and really set some status points of you getting
Yeah.
started. Like in the health range, a lot of people write down at the beginning of the year, oh, I'm going to lose weight. Well, if you just say that, you're not going to move forward with it. But instead, if we break that down into smaller chunks, and let's say we want to lose 50 pounds next year, and we tell ourselves, what's one action thing? Well, one thing you got to do is you got to start exercising. The other thing I tell people all the time, I tell them, don't diet. Instead, change your eating habits. We've got to change what we intake to get a better output. And that becomes the real key of when we break it down in smaller chunks. And it's kind of the saying goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But you got to take them small steps. And when you take them small steps in the first 90 days, it's about getting started. What's going to get you started on it and build momentum? The bad part about goal setting, Josh, is a lot of people set them and then they wait till fourth quarter and then they look at their goals and they say, oh my God, I've not done anything on this, and they try to accomplish it in the last quarter. And that's the tough part about goal setting. It's about a continuous visit. I look at my goals every week. When I do my weekly planning, I review my goals I have for that quarter. Now, do I attain everything that I set out to achieve? No, but I'm a firm believer I achieve more because I set those quarterly targets and then tell myself how am I going to get started? What's the small steps that I need to take to get rolling with it?
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And I guess, goals are obviously a good thing, but I think with people, and it's good to set big goals too, of course, right? Because big goals push you to go there. But I think big goals can be scary and actually just cause procrastination unless you really break it down in those chunks you were just talking about, right?
Yeah, I think that's the real key is, I'm reading right now Scaling Up by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and it's another author too. And, he talks about, you got to set goals out there. And, if it's really scary, instead of saying 10 years out, put yourself to a 3-year time frame. And then even push yourself, how can I achieve that in 1 year? Because it sets our mind to say, okay, what's the big steps I need to take instead of just getting started? Okay, what's the big things I need to do to be able to accomplish it? And I think that's the real key that we're talking about is how do I set myself up for success and how do I push myself? Because if it doesn't get me going, then of course I'm not going to do anything on that goal. But instead, does it excite me? Does it energize me? Is it something I truly want to accomplish? And then that creates momentum. And I always use the analogy of, we remember as kids, we loved the merry-go-round. Well, the hardest part about the merry-go-round was what? Getting started. Because you had to push that thing and push the thing, especially if you had some of your buddies on it, and some of them weren't the lightest guys. But once you get that momentum going, that merry-go going around, guess what happens? Momentum happens, and then you get to jump on and enjoy it also. And I think goals are like that.
Yeah, for sure. So after you sold the wireless business, what was next? I mean, I'm sure you had goals for your other businesses, but you complete. That, not saying it was your identity, but that's what you've been doing for so long. And that was like a big part of you. So what was your next move?
Well, I had several other businesses that relied on the wireless business. So for the next couple of years, I really spent trying to figure out, do I need to either sell them? Did I need to close them? Or what did I need to do with those businesses? Because I realized the wireless business was my engine that was really making it all happen. And I'll be honest, the hardest part is with the team that I had behind me, because then, of course, it became less of a team, didn't have as many people because I had different people in different organizations. And that became the real key. So I had to really look at some of those hard parts that was there and say, which businesses am I excited about and which ones are I'm not? So I sold several of them, closed 1 or 2 down. And then I also just really decided that my strength and my purpose was really helping entrepreneurs achieve their success. And I loved coaching. I loved training with our team. So I ended up going into more of the coaching, training, did some speaking, and really enjoyed that part of it and decided I want to help other entrepreneurs really learn from the mistakes that I made and to be able to really grow themselves quicker and faster is really working on that. And I really got into high performance, got some training for the High Performance Institute and some things of that nature to really make that change for individuals. And really, I'll be honest, it helped myself because it really changed my thinking on what high performance is and how we can create it and how that holds us back is our mindset holds us back the majority of time. Instead, it's about what can we achieve but then how can we move forward and what's the clarity behind it? So goal setting sits in there, but
Right.
also what's that clarity? Why are we
Yeah.
really doing this? Because I'll be honest, when I was first in business, I was going for one thing, success, money, thinking that was going to take care of everything. And then when you have family and you have children and stuff, you realize that is not the only thing out there. And when you,
Yeah.
I use the analogy, if you climb to the top of the mountain and you're there by yourself, it's going to be pretty lonely. And what I want entrepreneurs to do, I want them to climb the mountain and get the success they want, but really I want them to create that significance. So we talk about life domains and how do you get it in all areas
Yeah.
of life besides just business? Because if it's business, the only thing that drives you, you're going to feel empty at some point, especially if you have children or family, or you'll wake up one day and you won't have that family around you because you'll have a divorce that comes in. So you've got to look at the bigger picture. And a lot of entrepreneurs will do anything for our business. And I was this way too. But man, in our relationships, we don't work as hard sometimes. And I really try to convince my guys, you've got to work in the business side just as hard in the relationship side.
So that's a great question. That's a great point. Is that like the secret sauce from all the people you worked with? What sets the highest performers apart from the other ones? Was it certain habits, or what have you noticed?
I think some of it is really getting clear on what you want, trying to
Yeah.
really define what they want. And when they get clear on that, then that they do that. But that when I get clear on that is then that's when I have to push them sometime. Because when I go through my 3-year plan with them, my Clarity Navigator, I look not only in business, but I also talk about the life domains of health and relationships, financial, and spirituality,
Yeah.
looking at all those different life domains of really the person that concentrate on that. Now, you're not going to have as many goals in those different areas, but I want you to have something in those areas and really giving those some consideration. We just got done with our live event mastermind, and greatness was the theme. And it's a book written by David L. Brooks. He's a PhD, a sports psychologist. And his big thing about goals is you got to have them, but you got to know where are you progressing to and why are you doing it? And to me, that's that clarity piece that they have to get clear on.
Yeah. Getting to the heart of the why, it's so important. For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the greatness was your live session was, like you said, just recently. What do you find? What was the biggest takeaway? I know you're just talking about the why, but like with those group of guys you had there at that session, what was the biggest takeaway from that?
I think one of the takeaways was just really realizing, hey, when we write it down and we put some meat behind it, then of course we get it. But I think the other piece is what's the accountability to myself to be able to achieve it? Because I think that's one mistake that a lot of men make is they'll write things down and it's their little secret. Instead, who are you sharing it with? Who are you helping you hold you accountable? If it's something in the spiritual realm, maybe it's your spouse. If it's something with your family,
Yeah.
with relationships, maybe you have that person accountable. I'm a believer. I don't care if I'm your coach or not, but I'm a believer in every business owner should have a coach. Look at all the professional sports teams. Why they're successful? Because they have coaches that help them. And then some of them, the really good athletes, have coaches outside of their teams,
Yeah.
and they have coaches helping them. And I think that's the thing is having someone that kind of helps you stay on that path. If you grab the compass, or an airplane, and you fly in an airplane, you hope they have a flight plan, right? And they don't follow it 100% exactly. But the thing is, they know when they go off course. And I think that's what helps people is you've got to know when you're on course and when you get off. And let's be honest, we're human beings. It's easy to get off course nowadays with all the distractions, with all the interruptions, with everything that's out there. And entrepreneurs are what? We're like squirrels. We love shiny
Yeah.
objects, This opportunity's here, this opportunity's here. And we go, oh, the thing about entrepreneurs we have to realize is we have that. Well, a coach will help you stay on target because the problem is if you don't, then the problem is you're chasing too many battles. I mean, I look back at some of my businesses I started, I should have never started them. But the only thing was, boy,
Yeah.
it was new and so exciting. But then when I got
Fun,
into the
yeah.
meat and grind of it, it's like, why did I do this?
Yeah.
So that's why we need someone to help us stay accountable, I believe.
Yeah, there's so much truth to that, right? It's like you're essentially building that mallet that you're beating yourself over the head with because you just add another after the fun, same way. After the fun, the launch is over, then it becomes a real business, right? And then that's whenever it's not as fun anymore. So
Definitely.
how do you if you had to like do it all over again, is there anything you would have changed in the past in terms of in terms of shifting out of the wireless sooner, earlier? What are your thoughts there?
One of them that I look at, we've done some passive income with rental properties and stuff. And one of them that I look back is there was about 10-year spell that I didn't buy any. And where I wished I really would have had those every 1 to 3 years, that every 3 years I was buying a piece of rental property. I still done well with that.
Okay.
And it's nothing that stresses me, but it's just little things there. And then I wished I was more focused on more of one thing versus multiple things. I mean, it provided a area that interest me, but the only problem was it really took me away from my core focus. And what is that one
Yeah.
thing? Where are you getting 80% of your revenue from? Spend the majority of time there. I'm not saying don't have anything, because we're entrepreneurs. We like starting other things. The other thing I would have learned on is that it all doesn't have to be about me. It's about the others. And I think I learned this over time with my people. But I think the thing is, in the beginning, I mean, it was just sheer out effort and hard work that I was going to make this successful. And I'll be honest, my 20s and 30s pretty well are a blur and stuff. And some of the
Yeah.
things my wife remembers about trips and everything else, sadly to say, I was there, but I wasn't there. If we all know, I
Yeah.
wasn't present. And I missed those opportunities. And when the kids were young, it's not like I was an absent father, but I wasn't there always because I was always thinking business instead of being there. We took some nice trips and did some great things, but now I look back on that. That's one of those things you can't take back. But I wished I would have been more present when they were younger than I was.
Yeah. I think kind of going back to what you said in the middle there about focusing on one thing, not maybe one thing, but just a few things versus 10 things, right? It's kind of like, I can talk to my coach about this last week about it's like burn the boats moments, right? Like, I like that framework. It's not a really framework, but you said if whatever's driving 80% of your revenue, kind of focus in on that. That's still really hard to do. Any advice on like how you're able to tame your entrepreneurial spirit a little bit, at least to focus on that area?
Yeah, I think one of the ways is really ask yourself, what is driving it? The others, are they as energizing as you think they are? And then which ones have the most potential? Looking out 3 years, 5 years, which ones have the most potential that you have that's there available to you? There's some that's easier, like my passive income side. The rental properties didn't take much of my time. Early on, my wife, we were managing them, everything else. But if you can get to the point where you can have somebody else manage them, I mean, that's the best thing ever. So look at those ways of other opportunities that you can have. And I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, and where do the majority of people that have wealth get wealth, especially family wealth, is they've got investments in the stock market, but that's a small percentage. Instead, they're finding other opportunities of people that want to grow a business and take it to the next level. So where can you be part of that? Maybe it's your business that you can bring others in to help you get there quicker and faster. And I'm not saying, and they're investing in. If you win, yeah, they're going to win too. But would you rather be a little $1 million business and you drive to do that for 20 some years, or you get the right resources behind you and become $100 million business? I guarantee you, if it's profitable, 100 million is a lot more profitable than a $1 million business, if we're on the same scale. So that's where we can bring people in to be able to help us reach really a faster result than we did before. And you're not disturbed by all those little things. Because sometimes we do a $1 million business and we got a little $500,000 or a $250,000 business over here. And that $250,000 business takes more effort than your $1 million or $5 million business does. And so they become distractions instead.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. What are you working on right now you're excited about?
Well, a couple things. One, I'm really excited that I'm in a process of writing a book on how to attract, retain, and engage Generation Z. I wrote one about millennials on this same thing, and I've been doing some research on the generations, and it's going to just be a quick, easy kind of ebook style. It's something to really, because I've got children at ages. I've got children 26, 25, and 23. So I'm seeing them and what they expect in the workplace. And I think so many people think, oh, that generation, they just don't want to work. They're lazy, whatever. But when you do the research on it, really, they've grown up at a different time. They expect different things, no different than I'm sure you're probably a millennial, Josh, and stuff on that side. You expected something different in the workplace. Well, my dad thought I wasn't going to be worth anything, but one generation always trades off to the next generation. But you have to realize these two facts. Boomers are going out of the workplace. Generation X, which I am, is the next largest it's the largest generation in the workforce today. Millennials is the next largest, or the next smallest, whichever way you want to say it. And Generation Z is going to be the smallest workforce in the generation. So we're going to have to change as business owners and entrepreneurs on how we do things and be more efficient in what we're doing, because there's not enough people to cover all the positions that's available. So I think that's the real key. And that's my message I want to get across to it is every generation trades off to the next generation, but how can you use those strengths of that generation to really propel you? And let's take some notes, because people like myself, I can learn from someone that's younger, like my son's doing it versus the opposite. But that top-down leadership, that's got to go. Instead, it becomes more of that collaboration and team leadership that has to be there.
Yeah, you see that in the marketplace kind of happening already a little bit, of course, right? Just to millennials like that, all the generations seem to do well with that.
Yes.
So, well, as this book comes to light, where can people learn more about you? Go find information about it, things of that.
Yeah, you can go to GaryWilbers.com, or you can go to goascend.biz. That has all my coaching, training, other items. It's there, but either one to get you into that side of it. GaryWilbers.com, just WILBERS.com. And there's a lot of information there. And I talk about my speaking, but also do some training. I do some coaching also. And if there's anything I can help with, my passion and my goal is to be able to share knowledge with others. I don't think I've got it all figured out, but I love sharing knowledge with people.
Yeah, I've been through a couple of your trainings, and they're very, very enlightening, and definitely take a whole notebook full of lessons away from it. So I've always appreciated them.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Well, I want to thank you very much. Yeah, no problem. I want to thank you for being on the podcast as well. This has been a great time. Anytime I can catch up with you, it's always fun.
Josh, I appreciate it. You're doing great things. Keep up the great work, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, Gary. All right, that's a wrap, folks. Thank you guys for listening to this week's Making Big Shifts by Marketing Reboot. Join us, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and Spotify and everywhere you also find your other podcasts, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to Making Big Shifts. Like, share, and follow for more. Join us next time on Making Big Shifts, presented by Marketing Reboot.